Well, just 2 weeks remain in the college football regular season, and Auburn will close out the year at home, back-to-back games against New Mexico State, and then, of course, the Iron Bowl next week. But before we talk about the big one, we're going to break down Auburn's big win last week and then look ahead to New Mexico State as the Tigers look to keep the momentum going on a 3-game winning streak. Let's go head-to-head. Welcome in, everybody. Cole Cubelic, Simone, Eli. Cole, I just have to say you've been spot on week by week ever since you said that Auburn has a huge opportunity to turn this season around. That's exactly what they've done. And boy, what a win for the Tigers against the Hogs this past weekend.
To be able to go on the road against an SEC West opponent and have that kind of success, really on both sides of the ball in all three facets, you get a punt return for touchdown by Keontae Scott. You had a lot of success running the football, I think most of the games since 2019, 2018, in an SEC game at least. And Peyton Thorne looked very comfortable. The defense won the line of scrimmage. I thought Auburn won the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, which is not something that we've said about the majority of the games they've played this year. So just a lot of things coming together. I think you can see more of Hugh Freeze's fingerprints on this offense as we continue to go down the road. The RPO game was something we heard him talking a lot about beginning of the year. Tempo, beginning of the year, not being there, his frustrations with that, and you're seeing a little bit more of it now. And it really does open up a lot. And I could watch that film and see, now I know why Hugh Freeze was frustrated with that portion of this offense earlier in the year. And maybe part of it too, just telling Peyton Thorne, you're our guy, and we're going to go with you, has given him a little bit of extra confidence, because you can see that in his game as well. But Rivaldo Fairweather had a nice game. Jarquez Hunter had a nice game. And then defensively, I thought the front seven did a really nice job. We know that secondary is good. And we talked last week about how that receiver core for Arkansas wasn't really going to separate from that group. So it was a chance for the front seven to get after the Arkansas offense. And they did. They did just that. It was a dominant win. Yeah, this Arkansas team obviously struggling this year, but like you said, to go on the road in the SEC West and to have a win like that, 48-10, even surprised Hugh Freeze a little bit. I mean, he straight up said in Monday's press conference, like, listen, that's not an easy thing to do, to win like that and to win big. I mean, he kind of pat himself on the back a little bit and pat the guys on his team in the back, and they certainly deserve that. But the confidence of Peyton Thorne, I really think, has just been a huge turning point for this program. The guy, of course, he didn't play perfect football, but who does? 12 of 20. 163 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think the biggest thing, though, is to come out and to have that confidence to kind of punch a team in the mouth that quickly says a lot about how they felt going into this matchup. I think it just showed, and one of the other questions we asked last week, Simone, who really had the momentum here, because Arkansas was backed into a corner, felt like they had to get that win in Gainesville to save their head coach's job, and they get it and look pretty good doing it in certain facets. Or was it Hugh Freeze's Auburn team that was trying to build this momentum leading into the Iron Bowl, and now they have a chance to continue that? And Auburn looked well prepared, looked motivated, played hard, all the things that you'd like to see from your team on a week-in, week-out basis. And I'll just say this, they can't sleepwalk through this one this week. I called one of New Mexico State's games earlier this season. They do a really good job. They're a physical football team. They're one that Auburn's got to be very careful with everything they bring to the table. Well, going into this matchup, not only is an opportunity for tune-up, but like you said, this isn't just like a cupcake game, or what, I'm not sure. What was the phrase that you used, by the way? Lettuce. This is lettuce weekend in college football. Yeah, nobody likes extra lettuce, and we don't like these games. Correct. I love that phrase. And this is really what that is for Auburn. Like you said, an opportunity for them to improve and to tune things up before the Iron Bowl, but also something that they have to pay attention to. If you're in that locker room and you're looking in the mirror and trying to figure out, okay, where do I go from here? What do you want to work on yourself in practice this week and then going into this game on Saturday? I think it's just attention to detail. It's focus. It's having the same type of preparation that you had for Georgia, for LSU, for Arkansas last week, and then try to match that intensity. That's usually the difficult part, because especially with what Auburn has done here recently, because you had to really ramp it up a couple weeks ago, and you knew you were going to have to go 4 or 5 straight weeks of massive intensity, and they've been able to do that. So now can you keep it up for one more week? And then you're obviously looking ahead a little bit to Alabama. That's a massive game. It's a big game. We understand that. The holiday's right around the corner. There's a lot of distractions as to why you might not be laser focused. So that is the most important task at hand. Yeah, I kind of buried the lead. Obviously, Auburn now bowl eligible, so they will be in the postseason. And, during that losing streak, I think there was a thought process of like, okay, I remember talking to you about this and other folks, just
is this kind of just a throwaway season? Is it one of those deals where you just kind of chalk it up to Hugh Freeze needs to get his guys in there? And you said, no, there's so much to salvage here. There's so much to work for. And this team really bought into that. Hugh Freeze reiterated that same message in press conferences. And I mean, to now be an opportunity to have, I mean, to beat Alabama would be huge, but to have an 8-win season or, to go into a bowl game at any point, I mean, that's a big deal for this program that, a month ago, we weren't really sure what things were going to look like.
I think to have a couple of SEC wins here on the backstretch, you build some momentum heading into recruiting. You have a really good chance to be a 7-win football team heading into the Iron Bowl, and you get it at home.
Yep.
And there are some parts of that game, I know we'll spend next week talking about it, that actually match up fairly well for Auburn. Not across the board, and not a lot of places, but there are a few things that Auburn could have some real success against that football team with. So. Yep. I think you got to try to continue to carry that momentum. And if you mess around and sleepwalk through this game and drop this one this week, it doesn't really matter.
Is there a concern about complacency? Because Coach said that. He said, yeah, the one thing is about getting the momentum, but keeping the momentum is a whole another, challenge, so to speak. Because that's what he really wanted to see out of his guys, is to take the momentum of a 3-game winning streak in the SEC, to go into this matchup not complacent, but dialed in, laser focused, like you mentioned. Is there the possibility that could – the guys could just be like, all right, this is a little bit of a break before we get back in SEC play to round up the season with the Iron Bowl?
No, absolutely. And I'll say this too. Number one, Jerry Kill is a really good coach. Mm-hmm. And he's old school. He's hard-nosed. And he's taken one of the doormats of college football for the last 20 years, and he's made them into a perennial bowl team. This is an 8-win football team that's coming to Jordan-Hare Stadium. And Diego Pavia, their quarterback, he's big time. And just to give you an idea what kind of individual he is, he's a 3-time state wrestling champion in high school, which you don't hear that a lot about your quarterback. And he plays like it. He will try to run over you. He'll try to fit some balls in some windows that aren't necessarily there. Like, he's a bit of a gunslinger, but he's literally like watching a fullback play quarterback half the time. And they got a couple guys like Eli Stowers, who was a quarterback at A&M, that now they moved to receiver. That's a super athlete that does some different things for them. They've got some red zone guys like Trent Hudson, who's like 6'3", 6'4", big, long receivers. They have legit players. Now, if Auburn plays their game and plays what they've done the last few weeks, it shouldn't be an issue for them at all. And I think if you can do that, you can actually build on the confidence that you've got, build on the momentum you've got, because after the game, Hugh Freeze can go back to some of those things where a lot of people are saying, it's New Mexico State. He can say, no, that's an 8-win football team. Like, that's a team that's got a chance to win their conference. That's a team that has a lot of players that have played a lot of football, and you just handled them. Yeah. And that's what good football teams do. They handle their business against opponents that don't have the same kind of talent. So we'll see I think this may be, sounds crazy, this may be a better indicator of where Auburn is this week than it was last week, because – Arkansas put everything in the tank against Florida. Was there going to be anything left? We weren't really sure. Now you're facing a team that is going to bring everything they have against you, and they're going to leave everything in the tank on the field this weekend. So I think this will be a really good indicator of where Hugh Freeze's team is mentally and emotionally.
Before we get into predictions for this game, Cole, you're obviously very locked into SEC just all throughout the entire conference with ESPN, SEC Network, WJOX in Birmingham, your podcast Cube show. 2 questions. One, how is it just weird to see 2 coaches in the SEC get fired this past weekend with 2 regular season games to still go? And 2, where will you be this weekend? I would like an answer to both.
I'll be in Columbia, South Carolina, Kentucky at South Carolina. Gamecocks still fighting for bowl eligibility. Obviously, Kentucky, I think, has had a little bit of an underwhelming season. They're at 6 wins, but I think some of us, including myself, thought they were going to be a little bit better. And as far as 2 coaches, the very last portion of what you said there is what sticks out the most, with 2 regular season games remaining. I think if we went back and we really looked into it, we could find a lot of football teams that have both fired their coach after they lost the last game of the regular season.
Oh, yeah.
But with 2 games left, 2 coaches getting fired after the same game, I don't think I've ever seen that. And I think we'd be hard-pressed to find that somewhere else. So the timing was a little bit odd, specifically the coach that won 51-10 getting fired first. Yeah. You don't really anticipate that. But it's going to be really intriguing to see which direction those schools go, because there are a lot of people that'll say Mississippi State did not really give Zach Arnett a chance, real recruiting class, didn't give him a full season, and he might not be the guy. I don't know, but he may have been the guy, and you didn't really give him a chance to prove that. And as far as Texas A&M is concerned, You've already written the big check. You've gone after the big name, the big fish. So what direction do you go in this time to take over one of the proudest programs in college football?
Yeah, definitely just bizarre situations all around. The timing bizarre, even with the early signing period. Not something that you see very often. All right, New Mexico State at Auburn. It's a 3 o'clock kick at Jordan-Hare Stadium on Saturday. Cole, I have a big win for the Tigers, 42-3 in this game. And I know that, like you said, New Mexico State presents some problems. I just think, again, like I say almost every week, momentum is a huge deal. I think they're locked in. I think that Hugh Freeze has this team believing that they're maybe even better than what they are. I see them running away in this game.
Yeah, I think it will be that in the end, although I think New Mexico State can add a score or two. I'm going to say 41-14. I think there could be some headaches defensively too. They're going to give you a lot of three-man front. It's that old 3-3-5 look that can be, they see it in practice a lot, which is where it'll benefit. But the way that New Mexico State runs it a little bit, they knife their guys through just a little bit more. It can be complicated.
Sure.
Still have a freshman center. Connor Lewis played great football this year. I'm really proud of the way that he's played. But that could be just a little bit complicated for some of the things that they do.
Sure.
This is a game that if Auburn wants to go right at this defense, they can. I think it can have some success. But I think New Mexico State finds one or two. 41-14 will be my score.
I like it. 3 o'clock kick at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Looking forward to next week. Not trying to look past this one, but looking forward to breaking down the big one next week as we prepare for the Iron Bowl. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Head to Head. I want to thank our sponsor, the Alabama Cattlemen's Association. We will see you next week for the Iron Bowl, the 88th Iron Bowl, and that's going to be a good one.
Brought to you by Alabama Beef Farmers and Ranchers.